Have you heard about Anchor yet? No. Well, you're about to. Let me explain. First off, it's free. That is right. It is Free. Free. You know what I love about Anchor is it's the first place I went to when starting a podcast. And to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about RSS feeds, equipment, how to get everything set up. Anchor is the perfect place to do it. It not only has tools that lets you edit and create and form your podcast to make the perfect podcast, it will also help you distribute your episodes to many platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and much more. If you haven't checked it out, please go to www.anchor.fm to get started. Again, that's going to be anchor.fm to get started, or you can easily download the app on your iPhone or Android. So 28 Days Later was released off of a budget of $5 million in the UK, or technically $8 million here, to a box office total of $85.7 million. Originally, it was released in 2002 in Great Britain, and then it was released in the United States, I believe, sometime in June of 2003, and that was also released to less than 1,500 screens in the US. So essentially, this was a limited run film. It was a moderate success in the UK, but it became a freaking hit in the United States. And again, for it being so limited, that's a pretty big hit. And you have to think about the fact that this is a film that revitalizes the zombie genre. Yes, we had Resident Evil around this time, but Resident Evil was a different type of zombie film. This film not only shows the societal collapse and breakdown of basically our environment after an infection that spreads, it also shows zombies that are sprinting. We're talking athletic zombies. The first fast zombie was in Night of the Living Dead from George A. Romero. Keep that in mind. But this is the film that shows the very first sprinting zombies, which is terrifying. So 28 Days Later is basically about a group of activists that let a chimpanzee out of a scientific lab that is being tested with an infection known as the rage virus. Once the chimpanzee and all the people infected get out, we have our zombie movie. The breakdown of society, and then during this time, everything is cut off from the rest of the world. Basically, we lose touch with ourselves in Great Britain and whatever have you. Really, this is just about the fall of this country during this time. So fast forward 28 days later, our main character, Jim, played by Cillian Murphy, probably one of the greatest actors alive today. You'll probably know him from Peaky Blinders. Recently, he was in A Quiet Place Part 2. Anyway, he plays our main character, wakes up in a hospital and realizes that no one is in sight and everything has been deserted. Thus, we get to see our collapse of Great Britain. And he walks the streets, notices that people have missing signs everywhere, cars are vandalized, some buildings are almost dilapidated, cars are just spread all over the streets. Essentially, this is a fucking nightmare for him when he wakes up. But being that he doesn't know what has happened during the time that he's asleep, he is attacked by an infected group in which he's saved by a normal pair of human beings that inform him, hey, we're fucked. All of society, as we know it, is pretty much screwed, and that the military has abandoned us. We're on our own. Now I'm going to get right to it. As I said before, I absolutely love this movie. This came out at a time where Blockbuster was still around, so I remember going to the store and wanting to get my hands on it right away because, again, it was a sleeper hit. It was more word of mouth around here. So, I'm 8 years old. I think I was a little older than that, actually, but I go to the store, with my parents, and I see it, and I'm like, yep, I want it. It's on sale. I can own it. I've heard nothing but good things about this. It's word of mouth. People are talking about it at school. It's all over the internet. So I get it. I watch it. Fucking fell in love with it. I'm not going to lie. It was a little hard to adjust because, again, this is a movie that was filmed in Great Britain. This is a British film. And I had never seen one up to that point. So this is my first time. This is my first British ride, if you will. So I won't lie, it was hard to adjust to that aspect. I knew very little about British films. I knew very little about Great Britain, UK. I knew very little about anything outside of the US. So adapting to that was a little rough. At this time, I had no idea who any of the actors were. But I think that's what made it work very well, is that it's a different type of film. You know, when you watch this, it doesn't necessarily look like a high-tech CGI film. I mean, the differences between this and its sequel, later films to come, is it doesn't look pure and, high def. It looks realistic. It looks like somebody took a camcorder and filmed it, which I was totally fine with. I mean, the way the movement is in the film, the way things happen so fast, the way you see the zombies running after our main characters, the way you see them running for their lives up and down stairs, around street corners. It's pretty fucking cool, especially towards the end. And I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but when there's a gunfight and the evil military that is involved towards the end, which, again, they'll play a big part in the film, but I will not spoil too much of it. When that shows, it still looks like somebody basically just took a camera or a camcorder out of their nightstand, went outside and filmed this with a bunch of actors. And that's what I really love about it. Essentially, I don't like films like that at all, but this one, for some reason, whatever reason, it works. I think another thing I truly, truly love about this movie is the acting. I know I mentioned that, you don't really know who the actors are. At least I didn't. It was so surreal. It felt realistic in a sense. I mean, you could really tell that these actors are all playing these characters that have to deal with the breakdown of society in this time period. They are basically hardened by their surroundings. They've lost loved ones. They know that if something happens to another, they're going to have to get rid of that person. I mean, we have a character in there by the name of Selena. I guess you could say she's our secondary main character. She's pretty much one of the big characters, but she is a pretty good example of what happens when we do lose our loved ones to a situation where we have to react in such a rash but quick and almost smart way. She is so hardened by what has gone on that she refuses to form any type of bond with our main character, Jim, or anyone else. Now, over time, we get a little bit of her out of her shell, of course, but that's kind of the case with some of the other actors as well. You really believe that they are the characters they portray. Another great thing about this film is the aspect in which we don't really know fully what happens. Yes, they explain it to our main character, but we never actually see society fall apart. We get little glimpses of it at the very beginning of the movie on TV screens, but you know very little about what happens exactly. We just know that it's a virus that infects people, and upon infection, it makes them flip the fuck out. And then they attack people and eat them. But that's something I truly love, is they keep it very mysterious. And again, without trying to throw in any spoilers, we learn that with this virus, you have to have food, which is other humans. And the transformation from receiving a bite, basically like a zombie, is freaking quick. It's pretty damn fast. I think that's what also impressed me about this movie, was how fast this happens. I mean, in the very beginning, yes, it's pretty fucking scary, but there's a specific scene where our main character first encounters the infected, and they're all in a church. When you see them coming after him, the way they chase him, just the way that we learn right away they're not normal humans, it's frightening. I mean, that's what a lot of this movie truly is. It's terrifying. I can think of a ton of zombie films that I've seen that weren't not scary. This one is absolutely terrifying. I won't go into the sequel, but if we're going to compare the two, the second one is definitely more of an action film. This one is a scary film. This one is truly a horror film. And I think one thing I truly like about it is just the simple fact that even the writer and director did everything they could to try to stay away from labels. They didn't want to call this a zombie film. They didn't want to outright call them zombies, which they don't. Throughout the entire movie, we don't get any sort of hint that these are zombies. Just that they have an infection called rage. And, there's a lot of rumors out there, too, that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland went into this with the idea of, hey, let's make a zombie film. Here's an idea based off of George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead. This is what I'd like to do. But a lot of it was that it started with the idea of zombies that can sprint and what would happen to society, excuse me, what would happen to society during a collapse, a post-apocalyptic world. And I keep using those words a lot, but that's because it's very, very crucial. It's very important for this film. That's what this film mostly deals with. Yes, it is a horror film, and yes, it is essentially a zombie film, but it is more about the theme of dealing with loss of society, loss of innocence. There is a kid in this movie that we have to see how they learn how to adapt. There's loss of loved ones. Pretty much this film is about what happens when we lose everything. And I think that's probably one of the best parts about it is there's not a lot of films out there that explore that theme, especially in the zombie realm. I don't really have anything negative to say about this movie. If there is anything I could say that's kind of a drawback for me, it's you have to watch. We have to be careful and make sure you're watching the correct one because there's the UK version, which originally the ending is different from the US version. Now, when the US came in and got involved with the project, the ending was changed, which, in my opinion, either way, I really am not satisfied with either ending. Both of them pretty much close up the story very well. I don't like it. If I was the director, I would have done it differently. Make sure you're watching the US version if you want an ending that's a little more on a happy note. Unless you're like me and you're a film geek and you just like to see every ending. I'm pretty sure on the US Blu-ray copy or DVD or wherever you can get it, they probably have both endings in there. Actually, there's technically a third ending as well that I've never seen, but I had just learned about it when I was doing research for this movie. But everything about this movie is amazing. I don't want to tell you guys too much about what I like about it, just because it's all going to sound the same. But aside from the acting, the storyline, and the visuals, a lot of the set designs are good. I love the atmosphere of the movie. It's very gritty, pretty dark, pretty mysterious, also kind of depressing. We really get into what it looks like when there's nobody around and you wake up and pretty much everybody's gone. You really get a lot of that as well. And that's what I love is the atmosphere. I think another thing that truly sticks out to me too is just how what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess it's the chemistry is what I want to say. The chemistry between all the actors, it's not only believable, but it seems pretty realistic. I mean, it seems like what you would say to another person. I mean, it doesn't feel scripted. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. This movie does not feel scripted. There are movies where it feels like somebody will say something and you're like, yeah, that would never happen in real life. They wouldn't talk like that. This one seems a little more realistic, especially the conversations that Jim and Selena have. There's one scene in particular where they're talking about what would you do if you had the cure to the infection, which is pretty hysterical, very comical. I'm not going to spoil it. Definitely check it out. Guys, I'm going to give 28 Days Later a 5-star. That may seem like a bit much, but you have to understand this movie has more than just nostalgia. This is a very good film. And I love that it's not really considered a zombie movie. I love that they went in that route. And as I'd mentioned before, this is the film that revitalized the zombie genre. Yes, it's got boring over time, but when this movie came out, they were like, sweet, we have zombies now. And it was such a big deal because of the way it's done. This isn't just a zombie movie. This is a horror film. It's a drama. It's pretty much got a little bit of everything for everyone. And like I said, with the themes that they explore, absolutely amazing. This is more of a professionally made zombie film. There's a difference between this and a Resident Evil movie or so on. But yeah, this is definitely a 5-star movie. Worth checking out. I would say worth buying, owning on Blu-ray, DVD, wherever you can find it. You could probably find it in a combo pack with 28 Weeks Later. Otherwise, guys, thank you for listening. Oh, and again, make sure you watch the US version. Or, like I said, if you're like me, you like to watch everything, definitely get the UK version as well. It's pretty much worth it. I mean, as a fanboy, I love watching all things and anything films. So if you want a different insight of how the ending's supposed to look, there you go. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Please stay tuned and please stay scared.